35 years old, 13 years as a structural engineer, $142 million estate. And 5 weeks before my wedding, my parents tore my invitation into confetti at their kitchen table. My mother called me a disgrace. My father said they could only afford one daughter's wedding. And my sister stood behind them, smiling. But what they did with that invitation was nothing compared to what they saw on their own television 23 days later, while they were celebrating the daughter they chose. My name is Tara Ingram. I am a structural engineer, licensed SE in California. The kind of woman who reads earthquake data the way other people check the weather. Numbers made sense to me. Loads made sense. Stress points made sense. People didn't. Especially my family. The Ingrams of Newport, Arkansas. 2 parents. 2 daughters. 1 budget. And 1 very clear decision about who mattered. Bianca was the beautiful one. The easy one. The one my mother showed off like polished silver. I was the reliable one. The one who fixed things. Paid things. Solved things. And somewhere along the way, reliable became invisible. By the time this story started, I was the lead engineer on the biggest project my firm had ever taken. A landmark estate in Montecito, built in 1930, damaged by 5 earthquakes and 62 years of salt air. 44 rooms. Limestone colonnades. A bluff overlooking the Pacific. Assessed value, $42 million. And it was my name on the remediation plan. Not my boss's. Not some man in a hard hat taking credit in front of cameras. Mine. I had spent 28 months running seismic models, checking shear wall connections, reviewing foundation underpinning, making sure that 98-year-old estate could stand through the next earthquake. I didn't inherit that estate. I didn't marry into it. I kept it from falling down. But when I mailed my parents the wedding invitation, my mother looked at the words, Montecito Estate, and called it a fantasy. I designed that invitation myself. Cream cardstock. Blind letterpress. A single dried lavender sprig tucked inside. I measured the margins in millimeters. I chose the return address font after 5 ridiculous hours. It was the first thing I had ever made for my parents that wasn't useful. Not a tuition payment. Not money for Bianca's car insurance. Not a wire transfer when their furnace died. Just this. Come watch me be happy. Derek warned me. Maybe lower the bar. He stood in our apartment holding the invitation, turning it over in his hands. Derek Maddox. My fiancé. 63. Broad shoulders. Construction project manager. Steady in a way that made storms feel embarrassed. Lower the bar how? I asked. Like underground? He didn't smile. That was how I knew he was serious. They'll come, I said. It's their daughter's wedding. He kissed the top of my head and left the room, which, if you knew Derek, was his way of arguing. I mailed the invitation on a Tuesday. Priority. Tracked it like a permit submission. Delivered Thursday. 4:47 p.m. I imagined my mother opening it at the kitchen counter. Maybe touching the lavender. Maybe reading the address twice. Maybe putting it on the refrigerator beside Bianca's senior portrait, which had been there since 2017. 6 days passed. No call. No text. No message in the family group chat. Nothing. On the 7th day, I drove to Newport. The kitchen smelled like lemon cleaner and something burning. My mother stood at the counter. The invitation was in her hand. Not on the fridge. Not on the table. In her fist. Mom. She looked at me like I had dragged mud onto white carpet. Tara, we need to talk about this. My father sat at the table with the sports section open, reading glasses low on his nose. He didn't look up. My mother held up the invitation. A Montecito estate. She read the words like they were evidence. A $42 million property. Her mouth tightened. You expect us to believe this? It's where I'm getting married. Behind her, my sister Bianca leaned against the doorway. Arms crossed. Perfect hair. Perfect smile. The kind of smile she wore when someone else was about to bleed. My mother's eyes flicked toward her. I caught it. The pivot. The invisible consultation. Then Diana Ingram tore my invitation in half. Once. Then again. Then again. The lavender fell onto the linoleum. Don't humiliate us with that fantasy. My father folded his newspaper. Finally. We can only afford one daughter's wedding. 7 words. Flat. Factual. Already decided. As if somewhere in their house there had always been a ledger. Bianca, Worti. Tara, optional. The torn pieces lay across the counter. Cream cardstock. Blind letterpress. My name split through the middle. I should have yelled. I should have cried. I should have reminded them that I had wired $6,002 to fix their foundation 2 winters earlier. Instead, I stared at the torn invitation and started doing math. Load paths. Stress distribution. Failure points. That's what I do when something breaks. I calculate. Then I left. I made it to the car before my hands started shaking. Not crying. Shaking. The way a structure vibrates when it hits resonance frequency. Everything inside me moving at the one speed that could bring the whole thing down. I pulled onto the shoulder 22 minutes outside Newport. A semi roared past. The car rocked. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. A 22-ton truck at 67 miles per hour generates. I couldn't finish the equation. My brain stopped. I sat there for 42 minutes. When I could breathe again, I reached into my coat pocket and found the torn pieces. I don't remember picking them up, but I had. For pieces of cream cardstock. No la vender. Just fragments. The honor of your presence. Montecito, California. Ingram. I put them in the center console. Later, I slid them into a clear plastic sleeve. The kind I use for site reports. I arranged them like an as-built drawing. A record of failure. Not because I wanted to remember. Because engineers document failures. That was what my parents had become. A documented failure in a plastic sleeve. Filed between a seismic report and a parking receipt. Derek's mother didn't ask what happened. Clara Maddox opened her door at 11:30 that night, looked at me for 5 seconds, and said, "There's pot roast." That was all. No interrogación. No piti. No dramatic hook. Just pot roast. Green beans from a can. Mashed potatoes from a box. A kitchen table with a wobbly leg Derek's father had shimmed with a folded beer coaster before he died. The walls were covered in crooked photos. Derek in Little League. Mitchell in a graduation gown. Clara and Pete at the county fair in 1996. Nothing matched. Nothing was centered. And somehow it was the most structurally sound room I had ever entered. Clara set a plate in front of me. Sat across from me. Ate in silence. After 22 minutes, she said, "Family is who shows up." That was it. No follow-up. No lecture. No tell me everything. Just a sentence. And a second helping of potatoes. I had spent 35 years trying to earn a seat at the Ingram table. Clara Maddox gave me one without asking me to audition. 2. 5 days after the kitchen table, Bianca posted her wedding registry. 216 items. A pistachio KitchenAid. A honeymoon fund to Sardinia. Custom calligraphy pens she would never use. Bianca was marrying Trevor Whitfield. Nice enough man. Blond smile. Firm handshake. The kind of person who said circle back, without irony. Their wedding budget was $44,002. I knew because my mother had told me 8 months earlier. Proudly. My father had taken a second draw on their home equity line. $44,002 against a house worth $182,000. We can only afford one daughter's wedding. He had meant it literally. They had leveraged the house. Just not for me. I called Derek that night. "Don't cancel," he said before I could speak. I sat on the floor of our apartment. "I didn't say I was canceling. You were thinking it." I looked at the plastic sleeve on the coffee table. The torn invitation inside. They don't believe it's real. Then reality can correct them. That was Derek. Simple. Not cruel. Not dramatic. Just steady. We're getting married exactly the way we planned. The way we planned includes a landmark estate and a television crew. Then that's what we do. I looked at the invitation pieces. Then at the brass spirit level on my desk. My grandfather's. Paul Brennan. Bricklayer in Tyler for 43 years. Never went to college. Never left Arkansas. When I was 11, he gave me that little brass level. Heavy. Warm from his pocket. Before you build anything, Tara, he said, check if the ground is true. I had kept it on every desk I'd ever owned. 15 desks. One level. The bubble always found center. That night, I picked it up, held it in my palm, and made a decision. I would not beg. I would not explain. I would not send a second invitation. I would not write a careful text soft enough for them to finally hear me. I would build what I was building. And when it aired, they would see it. Or they wouldn't. Either way, I'd be married. Let me tell you about the estate. The Whitford estate sat on a bluff in Montecito overlooking the Pacific. Built in 1930 for a railroad heiress. Mediterranean revival. 44 rooms. Limestone colonnades framing the ocean like cathedral windows. It had survived 5 earthquakes. 6 owners. Nearly a century of salt air. But survival is not the same as safety. The foundation had shifted 6 inches. The east wing had stress fractures hidden behind plaster. The ballroom ceiling needed reinforcement strong enough to carry modern code loads without destroying historic details. Most people looked at that house and saw beauty. I saw load transfer, sheer walls, underpinning, connections that had to hold when the ground moved. My firm, Lansford Park Engineers, won the contract. I was project lead. 28 months of drawings, models, late nights, county meetings, steel brackets, carbon fiber strips, stone restoration. A national show called Restore America had been filming the process. 6 million weekly viewers. Cameras in the walls. Drone footage over the Pacific. Time lapses of the colonnade being rebuilt. The crew had followed me for 10 months. They filmed me crawling under floor joists, arguing with inspectors, explaining seismic drift to foundation donors who nodded like they understood and absolutely did not. Then the executive producer said, "What if the finale is a wedding?" I laughed. Then I realized she was looking at me. "Your wedding," she said. "At the estate you saved." Season finale. Live broadcast. 6 million viewers minimum. The foundation offered to host it at no cost. Their way of honoring the lead engineer. The show would cover flowers, catering, coordination, camera crews. All Derek and I needed was ourselves and a marriage license. I sat with the paperwork for 5 days. Derek pretended not to notice. On the 3rd night, he stood in the kitchen eating cereal from a mug. "You're not showing off," he said. I looked up. "You're just not hiding." The next morning, Clara called. "You take it. It feels like too much." "It feels like too much because you've been trained to take up less space than you need." Her voice was firm. "Take the space, Tara." So I signed. The foundation countersigned. Restore America scheduled the finale for June 16th. I told my firm. My wedding party. The Maddox family. I did not tell my parents. I did not tell Bianca. I did not post. I did not hint. Everyone who needed to know knew. Everyone else would find out on television. 8 weeks before the wedding, I almost backed out of the broadcast. Not the marriage. Never the marriage. The broadcast. The estate. The cameras. The thought of 6 million strangers watching me stand inside the building my parents had called a fantasy. I was at the firm at 1 a.m., rechecking shear wall connections I had already verified twice, running load cases that had passed months before, staring at deflection ratios until the screen blurred. Perfectionism is the polite word. The real word is fear. Fear that if I missed 1 bolt, 1 decimal, 1 connection, someone would point and say, "See? Fantasy." Derek found me after midnight. He didn't ask why I was there. He pulled up a chair and sat beside me. Waited. What if they're right? I whispered. About what? That I'm embarrassing myself. He leaned back. 6 million people are going to watch you walk through a building that was falling apart 4 years ago. He looked at the model on my screen. You're the reason it's standing. Then he turned to me. If that embarrasses someone, the problem isn't with the building. I closed the laptop. We drove home in silence. The kind of silence that doesn't ask you to perform being okay. 7 weeks out, Bianca called. I had been avoiding Ingram contacts since Newport. 16 unread messages from Diana. 4 from Wayne. All logistics about Bianca's wedding. None about my invitation. None about me. Bianca's name lit up my screen at 6:15 on a Thursday. I answered because Bluetooth connected automatically. Hey, I said. Hey. So I'm doing final seating charts. Of course she was. Mom wanted me to ask if you're bringing a +1 to my wedding. I gripped the wheel. We're tight on numbers. I let a truck merge in front of me. Counted to 7. I haven't RSVP'd yet. Well, can you? It's kind of important. I watched the taillights ahead. Bianca, you do know I'm getting married, right? Silence. Then a laugh. Small. Polished. Mean. I mean, sure. Pause. Hope your little courthouse thing goes well. It's not a courthouse. Some of us are having a real wedding. She said it like weather. Like gravity. Like Bianca Ingram had a real wedding. And whatever Tara did was theoretical. Then enjoy yours, I said. I'll be busy. I hung up. My hands were steady. That bothered me more than if they had shaken. I drove to the firm. Closed my office door. Picked up the brass level. The bubble sat dead center. My grandfather used to say, build on what's true, Tara. Not on who claps. I set the level down. Opened the finale logistics. The estate was ready. Every connection bolted. Every shear wall braced. Every inch of that 98-year-old structure reinforced to carry weight it had never originally been designed to hold. And maybe, so was I. 6 weeks before the wedding, I opened the family group chat for the first time in a month. I don't know why. Maybe masochism. Maybe data collection. The thread was called Ingram Family, with a red heart emoji. My mother administered it like a small country. I scrolled back. Delivery day. Thursday. The chat had gone quiet for 8 hours. Then at 10:47 p.m., Bianca had written, don't waste a stamp on Tara's fake Montecito thing. She's embarrassing herself again. My mother reacted with a heart. My father reacted with a thumbs up. That was it. No questions. No wait, what do you mean? No, has anyone asked Tara? Just a heart. And a thumbs up. Reviewed. Approved. Filed. I sat with the phone in my hand. Not shaking this time. Not calculating. Just reading. Bianca had seeded the lie. My parents had accepted it because it fit the structure they already believed in. They didn't shred my invitation because they lacked information. They shredded it because the wrong daughter had provided the information. And they liked that better. Derek came home and found me at the table. You okay? I found the message. He waited. Bianca told them it was fake. His jaw tightened. They believed her. What are you going to do? Nothing. He studied me. Nothing. If I correct the record, I'm auditioning again. I set the phone face down. I become the one bringing proof to people who don't want evidence. Derek nodded slowly. So what's the plan? The plan is I get married. I look toward the hills through our window. The show airs. A pause. And reality does the correcting. Silence is a weapon most people don't know how to use because it feels like losing. I had spent 35 years in a family where volume meant value. Diana spoke. Everyone adjusted. Bianca spoke. Everyone rearranged. I spoke. People waited for me to finish so they could get back to the person who mattered. This time, the silence would be mine. 5 weeks out, the estate entered final staging. Painters retouched the ballroom ceiling. Landscape crews replanted the terrace gardens from archival photos. Production built a 24-foot tracking rail along the colonnade, so cameras could move with the aisle. The showrunner walked beside me with a clipboard. This is where we'll cut to live audience numbers before you walk in. Live audience. I knew it. Of course I knew it. But hearing it out loud made the walls feel closer. That weekend, the Maddox family came down from Ojai. Clara. Mitchell. Mitchell's wife Jenna. Their 2 kids. They took over our apartment like a construction crew. Efficient. Loud. Loving. Jenna ironed my veil. Mitchell built the card box. Clara organized the seating chart with color-coded post-its that I, a professional engineer, found impressive. How many from your side? She asked. Her pen hovered. I looked at the empty green section. Then at Derek. Derek's side is my side. Clara looked at me for a moment. Then she wrote my name on a green post-it and placed it in the center of the table. Not off to the edge. Not at the back. The center. After they left, I opened the plastic sleeve. The invitation pieces were inside. For torn pieces. Cream-colored. Lavender gone. I took them out and taped them together. Not neatly. The edges didn't align. But you could read it again. The honor of your presence. I set it beside the brass level. A failure report next to an instrument that still told the truth. For weeks out, Restore America dropped the finale promo. I was in a meeting when my phone buzzed 16 times in 4 minutes. The trailer was 32 seconds. Drone footage over the estate. The colonnade rising from rubble. A voiceover. The engineer who brought a landmark back from the edge. Then the front doors opening to reveal white chairs and rose petals. No full face shot. No name. Just the building. The work. And a date. June 16th. Within an hour, the promo had 200,002 views. My firm's website crashed. My boss called from a golf course to congratulate me and ask if I could please call IT. Derek texted. You see the trailer? I wrote. Yep. He wrote. You telling your family? I wrote. No. He wrote. Okay. That was the entire conversation. 2 people who understood that some doors close because you shut them. And reopening them isn't generosity. It's permission for the same people to walk in and break the same things. Then Aunt Ruth called. One thing I hadn't told you yet. Bianca's bridal shower was scheduled for June 16th. The same day as my wedding. The same day as the finale. Aunt Ruth sounded careful. The way people sound when they're carrying information they know might cut. Are you doing anything that weekend? She asked. I'm getting married, Ruth. Right. Right. A pause. It's just your mother is hosting Bianca's shower that night. I said nothing. 42 people. Another pause. And they're doing a watch party afterward. My fingers tightened around the coffee mug. A watch party. Bianca's fiancé likes that house show. My breath stopped. What house show? Restore America. I set the mug down. Your father rented a projector. There it was. The collision. My family. Bianca's bridal shower. 42 women. A rented projector. Champagne. Cake shaped like a wedding dress. And the show they were about to watch was my wedding. At the estate they called fake. I could have warned them. One text. The finale is about me. That would have spared them. But sparing them was the old pattern. Absorb impact. Protect the people who never protected you. Keep the structure comfortable. No. Not this time. We can only afford one daughter's wedding. My father's voice came back. They had chosen. They had leveraged a house for Bianca. Torn my invitation. Believed her lie. Mocked my life. And scheduled a watch party for the exact night reality would walk through the front door. I did not warn them. For days later, Aunt Ruth called again. Tara, I need to say something. Go ahead. Your mother is hurting. I looked at the brass level on my desk. She won't say it, but she is. Did she ask you to call? Not in those words. Did she tell you she tore up my invitation? Silence. Did she tell you Bianca called my wedding fake and my parents reacted with a heart and a thumbs up? Longer silence. Tara. I'm not angry, Ruth. My voice was flat. I'm just not available. Blood is blood, sweetheart. Blood doesn't tear up invitations. She had no answer. After the call, I sat with both hands flat on my desk. The old Tara would have called Diana. Explained. Provided documentation. Built a case. Presented evidence to the reviewing authority. The new Tara checked the bubble on the spirit level. Centered. Then opened the seating chart. 12 days before the wedding, Restore America released the full press package. This time it had my name. Structural engineer Tara Ingram leads historic Montecito restoration and celebrates wedding at the estate she saved. My professional photo. My credentials. A quote from the foundation chair calling the retrofit one of the most significant preservation engineering projects on the West Coast in a decade. The show's Instagram posted a photo of me on the colonnade. Hard hat off. Blueprints in hand. Pacific behind me. 2,002,000 impressions in 50 hours. My firm received 13 project inquiries. A university invited me to guest lecture. A Santa Monica foundation asked me to consult. The show added another camera crew. Viewer estimates climbed past 6 million. 7 maybe. 8 maybe. I looked at the numbers like seismic data. Interesting. Useful. Not the point. The point was simple. In 12 days, I would marry Derek Maddox in a building I kept standing, surrounded by people who didn't need a second invitation. Meanwhile, in Newport, Arkansas, my mother saw the promo. I learned that later. Aunt Ruth told me in a diner in Tyler with the kind of precision that means someone has replayed a scene too many times. Diana was scrolling Facebook in bed. The Restore America trailer autoplayed. Drone shot. Colonnade. Then 5 seconds of a woman in a hard hat checking a steel bracket. My profile. Barely visible. She paused it. Stared. Called Bianca. Bianca said, "Mom, that's not her." A pause. They edit those things. It's stock footage. Trust me. And Diana did. Because trusting Bianca was the load-bearing wall of the Ingram family. Remove it, and the whole structure collapses. In the family group chat, Bianca posted a laughing emoji. LOL. Someone on that house show looks like Tara. Photoshop much? Wayne reacted with a laughing emoji. Diana did not react. For Diana, that was almost doubt. 8 days. That's how long they had. 8 days to Google my name. 8 days to call. 8 days to ask one question. Is this you? And I would have said yes. They didn't ask. Because asking me would have meant admitting I might be telling the truth. 5 days before the wedding, I sat on the limestone floor of the estate's east wing. There was no engineering reason for me to be there. The inspector had signed off 6 months earlier. The occupancy permit was issued. The safety coordinator had cleared the space. Still, I was there at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, checking joists I had already photographed 18 times. I looked up at the ceiling. Carbon fiber reinforcement hidden beneath historic finishes. Invisible from below. Strong enough to carry 5 times the original load. That made me smile. Some of the strongest things are the ones nobody sees. Structural engineering has a concept called load redistribution. When one column fails, the load finds another path. If the remaining supports are strong enough, the system holds. The Ingrams had been my primary column for 35 years. They failed. The load moved. Derek, Clara, Mitchell, Jenna, my colleagues, the foundation board, that little Maddox kitchen table with the wobbly leg. The system adapted. The structure held. I reached into my blazer pocket and touched the brass level, cold from the morning air. On my wedding day, I decided I would carry it against my chest. Not a prop. An instrument. Still telling me the ground was true. The night before my wedding, I couldn't sleep. Not from nerves. Not from excitement. I was staring at the plastic sleeve on the nightstand. The taped invitation. The honor of your presence. I meant it when I wrote that. At 3:47 a.m., I picked it up and held it against the window light. I could bring it to the estate. I could frame it. Put it in a before and after display. The metaphor was almost too perfect. Torn invitation. Restored building. Restored life. But I didn't. Because that would mean bringing the damage into the restoration. And June 16th was not about damage. It was about standing on a foundation that was finally true. I put the sleeve in the drawer. Closed it. Lay back down. Derek slept beside me. Steady. Even. Reliable as a metronome. Tomorrow, millions of people would watch me marry him. My parents would sit in Newport projecting someone else's moment onto a rented screen. And the family group chat would sit muted on my phone, waiting for a reply I had already chosen. 2 words. Not yet. June 16th. 7:18 a.m. Pacific. I stood in our kitchen with coffee and watched the sun rise over Carpinteria. Orange. Gold. White. The hills looked like a cross-section diagram. layers compressed by time and pressure into something solid. Derek came out at 7:40. Already dressed. Ready. I've been ready since I signed the retrofit contract. That was 4 years ago. Exactly. We drove separately. Clara insisted on tradition. She also insisted on playing a wedding playlist from 1989, mostly power ballads and one inexplicable polka. The estate was quiet when I arrived. Before crew. Before cameras. Before lights. Just limestone, steel, ocean, and 98 years of standing. I walked the east wing alone. My wing. Touched the steel brackets I had specified. Ran my fingers along the wall I had reinforced. The brass level sat in my inner pocket. Bubble centered through 2 layers of fabric. By noon, the production crew had arrived. 24 cameras. A live truck. Satellite uplink. Director's chairs. Cables. The showrunner reviewed the schedule. Retrospective at 8 o'clock Pacific. Live ceremony at 8:30. 11:30 Eastern. 10:30 Central. Arkansas time. At 6:15, I stood behind the estate's front doors in my wedding dress. White. Simple. Flat shoes. Bouquet of gardenias and California poppies. No Ingrams in the audience. Every seat full anyway. That sentence still heals something in me. No Ingrams in the audience. Every seat full anyway. At 8:30, the doors opened. The evening sun hit the colonnade exactly the way I had calculated. Golden. Laterao. Warm across limestone. The aisle was 74 feet of reclaimed Italian stone. White chairs on both sides. Gardenias. Ocean wind. At the end stood Derek. Charcoal suit. Hands clasped. Jaw tight. Eyes too bright. Trying very hard not to cry. Clara sat in the front row in a blue dress she bought on sale at Macy's. Mitchell and Jenna beside her. Their kids held flower baskets. My colleagues from Lansford Park filled the third row. Engineers. Architects. IT staff. People who had seen me at 4 a.m. with concrete dust on my sleeves. The host of Restore America stood to the side narrating live. I heard fragments through the ambient microphone. The engineer who spent 28 months bringing this estate back from the edge. Her wedding. The first event in the restored landmark. I did not hear the viewer count. I learned it later. 7.2 million at the start. 8.1 million by the time I said, Ido. 8.1 million people watched me marry Derek Maddox in a building that had survived 5 earthquakes because I reinforced every connection, checked every weld, and signed my name to every page of the structural report. The officiant smiled. You may kiss the bride. Derek did. The crowd applauded. The broadcast audience applauded from living rooms I would never see. I felt the brass level warm against my ribs. And I knew. The ground was true. In Newport, Arkansas, it was 10:30 p.m. I wasn't there. But I know what happened. Aunt Ruth told me. 2 cousins confirmed it. A neighbor named Patty still brings it up at church. Bianca's bridal shower had ended an hour earlier. 42 women in Diana's living room. Champagne. Finger sandwiches. Cake shaped like a wedding dress. Gifts stacked in the corner. Wayne had set up the rented projector. The screen covered the wall, where Bianca's senior portrait usually hung. Diana clicked the remote. Restore America season finale. Drone footage of the estate. Golden hour. Pacific glittering. Then the retrospective began. The house before restoration. Cracked plaster. Exposed rebar. Foundation shifts. A voiceover about preservation. Then me. Hut. Blueprints. Checking steel connections in the east wing. My voice on screen. This building survived because someone 98 years ago didn't cut corners on the foundation. According to Ruth, the room didn't react immediately. It took people a few seconds to reconcile the woman on the screen with the daughter they had been told to dismiss. Then someone said, "Isn't that Tara?" Diana's hand went to her mouth. Wayne's reading glasses slid off his face. Bianca set down her champagne flute. The retrospective continued. My name appeared. Tara Ingram. Structural engineer. Project lead. The daughter they said was embarrassing herself. The daughter they said had a fake Montecito thing. The daughter they chose not to believe. Then the live feed began. The estate doors opened. And there I was. White dress. Flat shoes. Walking down 74 feet of reclaimed Italian stone toward the man who had never asked me to shrink. 42 women watched in Diana's living room. No one looked at Bianca. For the first time in 31 years. No one looked at Bianca. My phone started buzzing during the reception. I had set it to silent. But during our first dance, I felt it vibrating against the brass level in my pocket. A tremor. Persistent. Derek held me close. You okay? I smiled. Yes. And for once, I meant it. I ignored the phone. We cut the cake. Clara gave a toast that started with, I always wanted a daughter. And ended with, now I have one. I had to hold my glass steady to keep from spilling. Mitchell's kids threw flower petals at guests who were not expecting it. The cameras captured everything. After the toast, I stepped outside onto the terrace. The Pacific was black. Estate lights shimmered on the water. I pulled out my phone. 49 missed calls. 25 text messages. The family group chat had exploded. Diana. Tara, call me immediately. Call me. We're so proud of you, honey. Why didn't you tell us? Wayne. Princess, please call home. Princess. He had not called me that in years. Bianca. Omigetara. This is insane. You should have said something. Diana again. We didn't know it was real. We would have been there. Call me back, please. I'm your mother. 25 messages. Not one apology. Not one mention of the torn invitation. Not one acknowledgement that they had believed Bianca's lie, funded one daughter's wedding, and called the others a fantasy. Just panic. Just a family realizing the structure they neglected was the one the whole country was watching. I read every message twice. Then call number 50 came in. I looked at it. Let it ring. Put the phone back in my pocket. And went inside to dance with my husband. It was 1:14 a.m. Pacific when I finally responded. The reception was over. Cameras stopped. Crew wrapping cables. Derek and Mitchell were in the estate kitchen eating leftover cake. Clara was organizing the gift table like a woman who had been waiting her whole life for that exact responsibility. I sat alone in the east wing. My wing. On a limestone bench beneath the ceiling I had reinforced. The group chat was still going. Diana had sent 33 more messages. Wayne had called 11 more times. Bianca had posted a video of herself crying. Caption. Why does everything have to be about Tara? I scrolled past the panic. Past the manufactured pride. Past the we didn't know. Past the we're so proud. Past the call me, I'm your mother. All the way back. Bianca's message. Don't waste a stamp on Tara's fake Montecito thing. She's embarrassing herself again. Heart. Thumbs up. Then Wayne's sentence. We can only afford one daughter's wedding. I looked at that sentence. Then I looked at the limestone walls around me. The $42 million estate. The restored colonnade. The building that had aired live while my family sat in a living room with rented equipment and watched the wrong daughter's moment become the one everyone would remember. I typed 2 words. Too late. Sent. Then I powered off the phone. Set it on the bench beside me. The waves were steady. The building was quiet. The brass level was still in my pocket. The bubble still centered. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't a speech. It wasn't a declaration. It was a boundary. 2 words that said, the door was open. You chose not to walk through. Now it is closed. And I am the one who closed it. The finale aired to 8.1 million viewers. Highest rated episode in Restore America's 9-season history. The next morning, they released a feature. Meet Tara Ingram, the structural engineer behind the Whitford estate restoration. My credentials. My project photos. A quote from the foundation board chair calling the retrofit one of the most significant preservation engineering projects on the West Coast in a decade. My firm received 13 project inquiries in 50 hours. A cable news show requested an interview. The university doubled its guest lecture offer. Meanwhile, in Newport, Bianca's bridal shower became the talk of the neighborhood. Not for the cake. Not for the registry. Not for the gifts. For the moment 42 women watched Tara Ingram marry on national television at the estate her family had called fake. By midnight, guests had Googled my name. Read the articles. watched clips, shared links. The math had changed. It always does when the data becomes visible. You can ignore a cracked foundation for years, decades even, as long as nobody sees the report. But once the report is public, once 8 million people have watched the building stand, every assumption has to be recalculated. The Ingrams were recalculating. I was not available for consultation. Diana left 6 voicemails that first week. I listened to the first one. She cried. Said I should have told her. Said Bianca confused her. Said she was proud. Always had been. She did not say sorry. She said we can only afford one daughter's wedding, had been taken out of context. Which is what people say when the context is the problem. Bianca posted an Instagram story 5 days later. Her wedding venue. Caption. Our dream day is coming. Comments turned off. I did not respond. No follow-up letter. No forgiving phone call. No carefully worded bridge for them to cross. Turns out they could only afford one regret. Wayne texted me 5 weeks after the finale. Private message. Not the group chat. 7 words. I should have driven to your wedding. That was it. No excuse. No blamsift. No, your mother said. No, Bianca told us. Just a statement. I read it at my desk. The brass level beside my keyboard. I picked it up. Felt the weight. For one sentence, I believed he meant it. But meaning it and doing something about it are not the same load. He had felt the weight. He had not carried it. And I was done hauling it for him. I typed, I know. Then deleted it. The message sat on read. For 5 weeks. Eventually, it became just another item in a thread I never opened. 1 year later, I have an office with my name on the door. The brass level sits on my desk. Bubble centered. Still telling the truth. Derek and I live in a house that is not large, but every corner feels honest. Clara still calls me her daughter when she introduces me. Mitchell's kids call me Aunt Tara. My firm made me principal. The Whitford Foundation hired me for 2 more restorations. Bianca had her $44,002 wedding. I heard it was beautiful. I did not attend. My mother sent me photos anyway. I deleted them. Not because I hated Bianca. Not because I hated my mother. Because not everything sent to you deserves a place in your structure. Some loads are not yours. Some cracks are not yours to patch. Some houses are not worth reinforcing. Here is what I know now. The strongest structure is not the one everyone admired while it went up. It is the one that holds when the people who were supposed to support you walk away. Because you finally built it on a foundation you chose. My parents tore my invitation into pieces. Then watched 8.1 million people see the wedding they said was fake. They chose one daughter. Reality chose the truth. And me? I stopped auditioning for love that should have been free. My name is Tara Ingram. I am an engineer. A wife. A builder. A woman who finally stopped bringing blueprints to people committed to misunderstanding the structure. If someone made you prove you deserved a seat at your own family table, stop. Build your own. Check the ground. Make sure it is true. Then let the people who doubted you watch from a distance. They had an invitation. They tore it up.